Hey everybody, just quickly before we get into the next episode, I just wanted to say thank you all for subscribing and liking. Makes this a lot easier to do. The channel just hit 5,000 total views, and I don't even know 5,000 people. I don't even know 150 people, which is the amount of subscribers we have at the time of recording. So thank you all for joining along my shitty little version of a Gregtech playthrough. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I'll leave you alone for now. And welcome back, everyone. Last time we were here, we managed to get our large gas turbines and start to process up some tungsten and tungsten steel. Today, we're going to automate our tungsten and tungsten steel like we do with steel, aluminium, stainless steel, and titanium by making some passive blast furnaces. We're also going to start making our way through the Insane Voltage quest page. We're definitely going to work on some laminated glass. We're going to work on ore processing with Gregtech multiblocks. And that's going to involve making the alloy blast smelter, which is a nice multi-block that's going to require some heat vents and a lot more RTM coils. But that's going to let us make things like the large maceration tower, the centrifuging unit, the chemical bath, the electrolysis plant, and the sifting funnel, as well as upgrading autocrafting by making things like the large wire mill and the large extrusion machine. This is going to take a lot of crafting and a lot more infrastructure. And one of the first things that I wanted to do between episodes was to rebuild our applied energistics system and put it on full display, as well as upgrading its capacity in the future. And so with that goal, I've created a new large building, beautifully scribed with applied energistics on the walls. And when we enter, we have our lovely skylight. We've got our drives on full display, as well as our crafting CPUs. And on the wall, we're going to have our molecular assemblers when we get to moving them. But for now, strap in for some relaxing building while we create our new rooms. All of the Gregtech multi-blocks that we're going to use for our ore processing require the alloy blast smelter. It's a little bit expensive with some tantalum carbide, but the heat-proof vents are where we're going to spend most of our resources. And we need 12 of them. We also need high temperature smelting cases, which is more alloys, because of course it is. But once we get that, we'll have access to all of our ore processing. So, let's get crafting. So we're here on top in what's going to be our future multi-block auto crafting room to show off the new alloy blast smelter, which you saw being crafted previously. If we were going to look at making the large maceration tower, which we will make this episode, we need to make our secure maceration casings. This requires an alloy called Xeron 100. Xeron 100 doesn't appear to have a recipe like normal alloys. We can see that there is no way to actually mix it up. This can be confusing for new players because the ore tree or the material tree is usually how people find out about how to make a material, as it has been in the previous. To make Xeron 100 and to find the recipe, what you need to do is click on the normal ingot, vacuum freezer, and then find the second page, which is molten Xeron. Molten Xeron is made in the alloy blast smelter, iron, nickel, tungsten, niobium, and cobalt with helium, and it makes 2,304 liters of molten Xeron. That's not arbitrary, that is exactly 16 ingots. Let's take Xeron for example. To make this recipe in the pattern terminal, you'll put the dusts in, but you'll need to change the output to the exact multiple of ingots you will get after vacuum freezing. So because there are 16 dusts here, it'll craft 16 ingots worth, and then when we request it through AE2, it'll expect 16 ingots and finish the craft when it receives them. So for ore processing, we're going to need Incolloy MA956. Watertight steel is the next one, and this appears to be 15 ingots. This is iron, aluminium, nickel, sulfur, and chrome. And now for the large maceration tower, we can just add an auto crafting pattern, put the frame box in the correct assembler, and then theoretically we should be able to request our 67 secure machine casings. Let's give that a go. So, very quickly, with our new rewire in the base, we've managed to finally complete the platinum line, processing our rarest metal mixture, just back here, for osmium and iridium. Well, I've blown up all the chemical reactors. So with all the casings being done, our laminated glass, and our single block machines all crafted up, let's craft the controllers for the multiblocks and set up ore processing. So there has been a significant time jump between our last two clips and where I'm standing right now. We're currently located in our ore processing facility, which we have almost finished. We're just missing the electrolyzer and sifter. Now, when I first started this ore processing journey with these multiblocks, I thought this was going to be a really easy affair. Since these multiblocks take an IV machine, I was expecting some ludicrous speeds. But if we look at the maceration tower, it's 3 seconds. Our high voltage macerator was doing 5 seconds. What gives? Well, this is the issue. These multi-blocks scale up with power in terms of speed, but only do one recipe at a time unless you have a parallel hatch. And these parallel hatches are ridiculously expensive and are required to make the multi-blocks actually worth it. They take 4 LUV circuits, an emitter, and a sensor. And the first one that we can make right now only does 4 parallel recipes. So currently we're running 4 recipes every 3 seconds in our large maceration tower, but we could be running 16 recipes in parallel if we use the regular processing array. So I'm still yet to really think if this was totally worth it, if making the Gregtech multi-blocks for ore processing were worth it. I don't really think they are. They were very expensive, but now we have them, we can scale them up when our power situation gets better. But for now, it's slowly working through our backlog of ores. And you might have noticed in our parallel hatches that they required IV components, sensors, and emitters, and this requires the quantum star. Quantum stars were another recipe we managed to unlock during the stream. We need to make nether stars. Nether stars are implosion compressor with nether star dust, and nether star dust is diamond, iridium, nether air, and rocket fuel. Nether air is simple, we just need an air collector in the nether, but rocket fuel was the more complicated part, and we have that here. The first reactor makes our hypochlorous acid. The second will make the 1,1-dimethylhydrazine with hypochlorous acid, methanol, and ammonia, which we are currently out of. And then you mix that with oxygen to get rocket fuel. There is a better recipe with dinitrogen tetroxide, but I can't be bothered with that. We don't need rocket fuel for anything other than nether stars. I think the next best option for us, if we take a look back at the quest book, is to start to work on the indium processing, to make HPICs and to craft up better circuits. We don't have access to direct indium processing until we get the Naquata line, which is an LUV processing chain. So what we're going to have to do is mix sphalerite and galena, purified versions, with sulfuric acid to make concentrate, and then we'll mix the concentrate with aluminium dust to get a full dust of indium, lead zinc solution, and aluminium sulfite, which we'll just process away, and we'll get our precious little indium. Okay, and now with the processing chain and all the filters set up, we're ready to go. As soon as we get some purified sphalerite and purified galena, we'll be able to make indium. So with ore processing going nicely, and the miners on a sphalerite vein and a galena vein, we finally have access to the indium concentrate. Oh, that's not working. That's a bit sad. Why is that not working? Ah, circuit 4. Wrong circuit here. Circuit 4 for this. Not too bad, only 10 seconds for an indium dust. And there we go. And we'll see our lead zinc solution getting centrifuged into lead, silver, zinc, and sulfur, which is nice. We can always use the extra sulfur. And water, which I have a voiding cover on the top of, so hopefully that is not actually there and it's just voided. There we are, voiding enabled. And now if we check in our applied energistics system, we have our indium dust. Alright, we've set the recipe. We should be able to craft some indium gallium phosphide. And it's done already, that was fast. And we should have the quest. Done. So to make the next tier of energy hatches, we need the high power integrated circuit, and we're going to need to make the IV cutting machine. And we'll request it up. And with all of that prepared, I'm thinking that the clean room needs to be a little bit more organized. So let's do that. And after a few hours, we've finally finished the clean room rewire. We've rebuilt our nano CPUs and added another assembler on circuit 4. We've rebuilt the circuit assembler and 2 more assemblers, one for our insane voltage crafting with PTFE and the old crafting with polyethylene. We now have a wall of laser engravers, all controlled by level emitters, to make sure that we are constantly stocked up on our circuit components with a new IV cutting machine. We've moved our board and new CPU productions into the clean room as well. Some of the new recipes are going to require clean room, and we don't have the filtration maintenance hatch available to us yet until literally the end of the game. This isn't actually nano CPUs now. This is for our insane voltage energy hatches. We are making the HPIC in this one. We are yet to set the recipe because we don't have vanadium gallium, but our high power ICs are going to be used for the insane voltage dynamo and energy hatches, which allow us to upgrade our turbines yet again. Qubit CPUs are also going to be being made. These require more IGP dust and some radon, so it's not a difficult recipe. You just need to do it in the clean room. And then we cut those, and then we use these for our latest tier of circuits. And you'll see this extreme circuit board here also requires the clean room. And this is fiber reinforced sheets, which we make over here. We are yet to import them because I haven't set up the filters on the applied energistics. So now that we've set the filters here, epoxy and raw carbon fibers is going to get us our fiber reinforced sheets. I've got a storage bus down there to actually connect up to the network. And now with all that set up, we should be able to request some extreme circuit boards. It's annealed copper foil, yep. Because this chemical reactor is running at such an insane voltage, no pun intended of course, it is actually running at IV, it flashes. The board crafting is so fast, the only limiting factor now is the bending machine. So once the clean room gets cleaned up, we'll be able to get our extreme circuit boards. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set the recipe for the qubit CPU wafer. And now this is a little bit complicated. Actually it's not, this is the really easy one. There is no complications here, this is easy. We can just request that and set the filters. And we'll request radon in this chemical reactor. We've got the qubit CPUs, and as long as we have, as long as we don't automatically cut down our nano CPUs, we'll be fine. It's the PIC wafer that's the complicated recipe. For the high power circuit, what we're going to do is we're going to send in 2 ingots of vanadium gallium with this recipe and just filter it into an extractor. Do we have any vanadium gallium? We don't. So we send in vanadium gallium. We'll grab the recipe. We'll come over to this interface here. Put in the recipe. And what we can do is we can place a conveyor to import and filter in the vanadium gallium. This will then extract it and output it into the hatch. And we have a filter on this hatch that is blacklisting vanadium gallium. So everything else will be pulled in. So the indium gallium phosphide and the PIC wafer. And then the vanadium gallium will be sent into the extractor, pulled into the input hatch, and we should be able to craft the high power integrated circuit. As long as we actually have the wafers for the PIC, which we don't have. So we'll have to make sure those get crafted. And for proof here, let's request 30 qubit wafers and see how that goes. And we actually have our qubit CPU wafer. Now all we need to do is cut it. So because qubit CPU wafers aren't used for anything else, we'll just pull them directly into the cutting saw. Okay, and 34 seconds again at IV. This is all very expensive on the power. Turbines have just kicked in again because we are using 40,000 EU per tick. Wow, even more. That's actually crazy. I really hope we don't run out of power beforehand, but we're really close to making the IV dynamo hatch, and that will mean that we can then pump in so much more power into our battery buffer and charge it much faster. Alright, so we have 3 PICs. Let's craft up 3 HPICs and see how that goes. And now we have our qubit CPUs, which gives us the quest. We'll need to make the IV circuit assembler, even though we only just upgraded our clean room. We'll have to redo it a little bit. And that gives us access to the next tier of circuits, which will allow us to get LUV circuits. Oh, sorry, ZPM circuits. And so after a while of tinkering with why the chemical reactor wasn't actually working, I found out that the 4 amp EV energy hatch only allows EV recipes, but consumes IV power. I've just placed another energy hatch at the back. It's not even connected, and now it's working perfectly fine. And so now we're finally going to have our HPICs and can avoid this whole situation. And with that craft completing, we have our HPIC wafer. We only get 2 chips per wafer, which is absolutely abysmal, especially because now the dynamo hatches take 2. But luckily for us, they do 2 amp output, and we can easily upgrade that to the 4 amp output. So with the ever-increasing demands of the insane voltage age, this is actually pretty low for our current base. We need to upgrade the turbines, and there's 2 ways, well, I guess there's 3 ways to upgrade a turbine. You can upgrade the rotor material, which we have. At the moment, we're using HSSG until they break. You can also upgrade the rotor holder, which changes the voltage of power, and then the dynamo hatches as well. So if we look into our large gas turbine right now, we can actually see that the energy dynamo hatch is too low. When these are going, these are producing over 4 amps of EV power, and what we do is we have the EV energy hatch, step it up to IV, and run it into the battery. Since we're going to replace these with IV 4 amp dynamo hatches and IV rotor holders, which I'm not even sure the dynamo hatches are going to work, 4x platinum cable, so 8 amps, isn't enough. So I've made some tungsten steel cable to handle 24 IV amps, and we're going to pump that into our battery buffer, so hopefully it means we charge things faster, and we don't use as much fuel. So let's replace the rotor holders. So as well, we get to reclaim our transformers, and then the EV 4 amp dynamo will be replaced with the IV hatch, and the multi-block is formed. And I think let's just see how much this will do. So its max EU per tick is 2 IV amps, I believe that is. I think that's 2 amps. But it is consuming almost double the fuel, so we really want to make sure that these spin up to the correct speed. Oh, the autocrafting. The speed now. Right now we have our multi-block wire mill currently making our 8x tungsten steel cable, and it's making it so fast. Perfect. Alright, so all the turbines are rewired up. At this point now we just have to wait for our battery buffer to go down. So now that our power is sorted, let's move on to circuit progression. So right now we are currently in our nano CPU age, and we can make up to LUV circuits. Quest hasn't been gained, but we do have access to this. Now I think we want to be moving on to our quantum circuits, which can start at EV and mean that we don't have to craft up 2 high voltage circuits to then make 2 EV circuits. We can just go straight there. As always, the further to the right you go, the cheaper the circuits get, and the further down you go, the more expensive they get. So the first IV circuit we ever made was horribly expensive and took crafting the MV circuit all the way up. Now for IV circuits, we only do 2 steps, and once we unlock our quantum processors, it's only going to take 1 step to get to the IV circuit, and that's going to unlock the ZPM processors, and that will unlock the assembly line, which is going to be a major stepping progression for us. But for now, we do need to make the IV circuit assembler. And I believe we can just auto-craft everything. Oh, we're missing some silver. Got the quantum stars. Alright, that looks all good. Let me just smelt some silver up and then we can request it. And after a little bit of waiting, yet again, we have our circuit assembler. And the quest. Crafting the circuit assembler has unlocked us the first quantum CPU recipe, which will be our first EV circuit. So let's set a recipe for that. We have everything here on autocraft, and we can grab that. And while we're here, we may as well set the recipes for the other circuits. Have the IV, the LUV circuit, which I'm not sure if we have the NOR gate yet, and then the ZPM, which we can make everything here, I think including the HSSG box. No, we have to set a recipe for it. That's right, I think we already have... Oh, we don't have rods on craft. And just like that, we have our first quantum processors. And a really nice quest. In testing the turbines, I've actually come to find out that we are going to be limited on benzene production now, which is a bit unfortunate. Our nitrobenzene setup here, which is an absolute spaghetti abomination. This tank was full, and it has been dropping slowly and slowly over the course of this. Hopefully the new power is going to mean that we are not going to be dropping benzene so quickly, but I think we're actually going to redo our benzene production. We're going to move away from using single block distilleries into multi-block distilleries and voiding a bunch of fluids, but mostly increasing our yield on benzene and especially upgrading this, which is still running off 2 medium voltage hatches. We are well beyond that now, and we're not even using the central power spine. So to finish off our ore processing, one of the things we want to make is the large electrolysis plant. And I went over this previously, but we need osmium. And osmium is actually an LUV material. To cook osmium, we actually need LUV, which is IV energy hatches, and RTM alloy. We're eventually also going to need HSSG coils. And that's what we're making here. This just takes some HSSG wire, tungsten carbide foils, and liquid tungsten. And 30 seconds in the assembler, of course. Okay, so in the meantime, I have upgraded our benzene production to using better pyrolyze ovens. I've upgraded the voltage tier. We're now down to 8 seconds for the greenhouse. The pyrolyze ovens are using RTM alloy, so they finish in less than a second. And then we use the distillation tower, which runs a recipe every 10 ticks straight down into our nitrobenzene production. And I guess we will have to wait to see if this production of benzene, bad example, every 8 seconds, is actually enough to sustain our base. If not, we'll have to look into other methods of power. And while we've been doing this, the turbines are now at full speed, and we can see that our new level of power production is 100,000 EU per tick, which is really, really nice in comparison to the original 20-something thousand, and then the start of this episode was 49,000. So with better turbines, better material processing, better storage, and better ore processing, I think that's about time we wrap up today's episode. So thanks for joining me on another episode of our Gregtech Community Pack series. Next episode is going to be the final episode in IV before we get the assembly line and move on to LUV. And I think next episode we'll do some more base expansion, make ourselves a better control room than the current one that we're standing in, as it's just really a piece of the base sitting on the floor. So I hope you're ready for the base to get bigger, the chemicals more complex, and the grind getting longer. If that's right up your alley, you know what to do. Drop a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think of these episodes. I'm always looking for feedback. And with that all said and done, I'll see you next time.